Hey everybody, let me first forewarn you, there's probably going to be some flickering flashing lights for the next couple of minutes as we drive through the woods. And secondly, let me say that this is going to be a bit different video than we normally shoot. I'm taking a walk out into the woods to a spot I like to go for a little thoughtful, quiet reflection. And it's usually a personal experience for me. It's usually a pretty emotional experience for me. So, you know, again, I don't really bring a lot of people along with me, but today I thought I'd make an exception, and we are going up to the Hoffman family gravesite or cemetery, whatever you want to call it. It's a small little plot of graves, but the Hoffman family buried some of their slaves along with the family members, and it's a good place to go if you really want to get in touch with some history and do, again, a little bit of quiet, thoughtful reflection. So if going to a cemetery and looking at the graves of deceased slaves, having a little bit of thoughtful discussion about that is not your kind of video, then now would be a very good time for you to stop watching if you haven't already. For the rest of you, again, this is usually a pretty emotional experience for me. Don't really know what I'll wind up saying or talking about once we get there. We're just going to get there and we'll see what happens. So if I do come across sounding a little stone cold or callous or whatever, that will be very deliberate for the sake of getting through the video, rather than, you know, like I say, it's typically a pretty heavy duty experience when I go up here, but you know, it is what it is. So sit tight, give me a few minutes, and I'm going to get up here around the corner, get parked, and then we got a little bit of a walk through the woods, and we come upon the little family cemetery about a half mile into the woods. So sit tight and I'll see you up there. All right, everybody, here we are pretending to walk up on the cemetery for the first time. I, of course, have been up here long enough to catch my breath. I just wanted to give you a look at what it looks like as we approach through the woods on what presumably was an old cart trail or something once upon a time. So let's go have a look at the sign and see what it says first. All right, a brief history. It's circa 1778 to 1890 for the Hoffman Gunpowder Burying Ground. William Hoffman, born in 1740 in Germany, arrived in Philadelphia in 1768. He married Susanna Weinbach in 1771. They moved here to Maryland in 1775 and built the Clipper Paper Mill. William was the first paper maker in the state of Maryland. In 1781, he built the Gunpowder Paper Mill. So now let's have a look at the reverse. Hoffman Gunpowder Burying Ground continued. The village that formed nearby was called Paper Mills, later renamed Hoffmanville. William provided a school and a church for his employees, as well as a burial place. Susanna died in 1803 and William in 1811. Their children were William, Christian, Henry, Jacob, Peter, Gottlieb, and Susanna. But I'm not here to talk about the Hoffman family history. Don't know what that is. That was just hanging on the fence, so I'm going to leave it alone, and that is my coffee mug. So I'm here to talk about all of these little rough stone markers you see that have no names, no dates, no nothing. Because here, these weren't people, these were property. And that's just really hard to get my head around sometimes. It really is. So a couple of the things that I always think about when I come here that really get my goat is at the very bottom of the list of all of the people that are buried here, there's one horribly offensive line that says, "Many of their faithful slaves are buried here also." Now, I don't know what the hell a faithful slave is, but there you go. It's carved in granite, so it must be true. Faithful slaves. Oh, it kills me. So, the other thing that always gets my goat about this particular place is when they surveyed it and mapped it out and decided where they were going to put the fence, This poor soul never even bothered to make it inside. And this one has the fence sort of stretched around the headstone, and I've honestly never walked around the periphery of the fence to see if there's any more. Normally somebody will take the time to put some rocks or branches or something around it. Today it was open, so I did that. I put those sticks around there just to sort of indicate that there is indeed a section that should be fenced off right there, but was not. So when I come here and I reflect, some of the things I think about are pretty obvious, cut and dry kind of stuff. What was it like to be a slave? What they must have gone through, you know. But that's a good place to start. And it really is just a starting point for me, because what was it like to be their grandchildren? You know, I think back to when I was a child and I listened to stories from my grandfather, and he was telling me about, you know, what it was like when he was a kid and so on and so forth. Imagine listening to your grandfather telling you how he was property. He wasn't even a person, you know? And then if you're going to think that, think about that person's grandchildren and how they heard stories from their grandfather about his grandfather was property, you know? And then you think about those people's grandchildren, and those people can be our neighbors, our co-workers. Those are living human beings. That's how recently all of this stuff was. A few cycles of grandparents ago, some of the poor souls in this cemetery weren't even considered people. They were property. They were owned. And then they get called faithful on the plaque over there that's supposed to memorialize them. It's just unbelievable. So, like I said, normally this is all private thoughts for me, and I don't really share this kind of stuff with other people. But as of late, I feel that now would be a good time to do it. I've thought about sharing this little spot with people quite a few times over the years, but again, it's always just come across as being, you know, not the right flavor for my channel. And it's not. I understand that. But sometimes, you know, it's worth just taking a moment to stop and reflect and think. So one of the other things I think about and reflect upon is, what good does any of this do? You know? Does it make a difference, me standing here and getting all emotional and sappy and whatnot? And the answer is, no, not really. Maybe. I don't know. It might help change the way I think, and therefore that's going to change the way I act. But I had an experience quite a few years ago, long before I ever started my YouTube channel. And, well, long story short, I'll spare you the details. I came to realize that there were certain things I can do and there are certain things I can't do. I'm just not cut out for. And being that's the case, I thought about the types of things that I can do. What can I do to make a difference? And so that's what I also like to reflect upon, is whether or not I am doing anything to make a difference. After the event I'm going to not talk about, I actually came home and I thought long and hard about it on my drive home. And I decided that one of the most simplest things I could do would be to join the NAACP. And I have been a lifetime member of the NAACP since long before I ever started my YouTube channel. I never miss an opportunity to vote. I never miss an opportunity to educate somebody that wants to try to tell me they think they know what they're talking about when it comes to this, that, or the other thing. I take the time to educate myself. I take the time when appropriate to educate others. I don't tolerate racist crap and stupid jokes. Not from my family, not from the people behind me in line at the grocery store. If I hear that stuff, I tell them to shut up. I don't want to hear it. It's not appropriate. It offends me. And just simple stuff like that is how I can make a difference in my life and in the life of people around me. You know, I've had a lot of people say that I've got this YouTube channel and I should really use it to make a statement and I can really make a difference at this point. And I don't necessarily think that's true. We're all familiar with the term, you've got to pick your battles. Well, a lot of us don't seem to realize that you also have to pick your battlefield. And my YouTube channel is just not the place for that. It really isn't. And I think putting that kind of message in the wrong place and trying to be either political or activism or whatever on my YouTube channel is simply something that would not go over well. It's not what that's there for. And in fact, that's not what that's there for me. This may come as a surprise to you, but my fish keeping is only one of my minor hobbies. I'm a newsie. I'm a politico. I spend all my time reading the news and keeping up on current events, and I'm active politically. I donate to organizations and so on and so forth. I spend a lot of time doing stuff like that, and it's an ugly, hate-filled, stressful place to live in your mind. And so my fish keeping and my YouTube channel and all of that is a nice, good place for me to go to not have all of that. And as I may or may not have said on the way up here, because I shot several different intros on the way up here, but in one of those intros I pointed out how, I normally don't tell you my politics or whatever, and I don't ask you about yours, and that's just the way I leave it on my YouTube channel. But rest assured, for all of those of you out there who think I could probably do more to fight the good fight, I assure you I have been fighting the good fight for many decades now, quite a while. Probably the last, I don't know, 20 years since I moved out to where I am now. And it's I'll say it's a very rural area where I live, and it was quite an eye-opener when I moved out here. And I have been fighting the good fight ever since. So like I said, normal circumstances, this would be just a sort of private trip out here to reflect and think. But today I thought I would bring you all out here along with me. I will give them credit, they did fight for the right side when we got to the Civil War. It is unfortunate that Maryland, in its long history, was once a slave state. Maryland did allow slaves. We disallowed slaves and outlawed slavery long before the Civil War, but we did allow them at one point, and there's some of their graves right there. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed, or maybe learned something, or maybe took a few minutes to think about yourself and your own life, maybe your own thoughts, whatever. I'm not trying to preach to anybody else what they should think or do or whatever, but I'm just trying to share a little bit of insight into how I think. And that's probably a lot more insight than any of you ever expected to get out of me on my YouTube channel. So hope you enjoyed that. I'm going to continue on with my stroll through the woods. This is always a nice place to stop. And you know what? I'm actually going to keep talking for a minute, because that's something else I think about a lot too. Sometimes when I walk through here, this trail here is where I get started, and I come up and I walk down the trail and I go on through the woods, and I've got about a mile to go before I get back to my truck. And sometimes I quite literally whistle past the graveyard. I don't want to think about this kind of stuff. I don't want to stop here. I'm just out in the woods to have a good time, and I want to go fishing or I want to go hiking. And I make a concerted effort simply to walk past here without thinking about all of the stuff that's worth taking a few minutes to think about. And I feel really bad about that. I feel really guilty. And sometimes I'll, spend some time here. I'll get pretty emotional. It'll get a little overwhelming. And then I'll continue on with my walk. And at some point, I got to collect myself and, stop sniveling and whatnot and get on with seeing the, the flowers and the birds and stuff and get on with my day. And so that's where the reflection part for me becomes important. It's, I have to live my life, and we have to, I can't go around like whipping myself with, guilt all the time because I didn't do enough, or I didn't do this, or I didn't do that. But at the same time, it's important not to do nothing, and so I try to keep it in a balance. When I'm up for it, I can come here. It's a good experience for me. It's a good reminder of why I do the things I do and why I fight the fights I fight. But some days it's just a bit much for me, and that's not what I come here for. I come out here just to go for a walk in the woods, and sometimes that's okay too, So, again, these are just some of the main themes I wanted to talk about. I've gone over in my head 100 times some of the things I wanted to address when I got here, because I know this is a very out-of-step video for my normal YouTube, but I probably didn't cover half the stuff I, sort of pre-rehearsed in my head. But there you go. Anyway, like I said, this was going to be a different one. Just a little bit of reflection, looking around. I thought today would be an appropriate day for it. So thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. And I will see you on the next one. Oh, no, I won't. I am not done yet because I still thought of one other thing that I wanted to say on the way out here while I was driving out here. And I was thinking about Black Lives Matter. And I was thinking about how in the 21st century, well into the 21st century, it is still considered controversial to even say the words Black Lives Matter, as though that is some kind of, again, that just speaks volumes about the fact that just that sentence, those 3 words, that phrase is controversial in the 21st century. Black Lives Matter. So they do, everybody. Black lives do indeed matter, and they matter a hell of a lot more than simply unadorned rocks stuck in the ground with no names on them because they were considered property. So there you go. I think that really is the end this time. I can't think anything else that I wanted to talk about, and I can feel the emotions starting to well up. So now would probably be a good time to go before I start blubbering. So all right, everybody. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed that. I'll see you real soon in the next one.